Alright guys, in this video we're going to learn about chords. Yes, that's right, chords. Really, really exciting stuff, you know? Like when you take two notes or more and put them together at the same time. It's like dope. Alright, let's do it. So basically, the track we're going to be creating is at 100 BPM because that's what the cool people are doing these days. That mid-tempo stuff, you know, like sure you've heard it. But we're doing melodic stuff at 100, so we're going to be throwing some chords in there. So I'll open up the piano roll. I've got Alicia's keys loaded over here, but whatever you want to use, go ahead and use. And we're going to start off simple, and then we're going to get more complex. So first, before we do anything else, got to decide what key we want the track to be in. Now, typically, I like to stick within having the bass notes be within, like, maybe D sharp up to A. I mean, you can do it in other keys, certainly. I just like those because they're kind of, the sub sounds the most powerful in that range. So for this one, I'm going to actually choose E flat minor. Kind of just chose it randomly. I don't have perfect pitch or anything, so when I listen to a song, I can't tell if it's in E flat or E or F. But you got to pick one before you can move forward. So E flat minor it is. So in E flat minor, there are a lot of chords you can use, but there really are only about 6 or so chords that make up like 95% of the chords that people use in EDM. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those out. Right, I'll draw them out in root position so that we can start there and then move into like inversions and all that stuff. So we got E minor, got F sharp major. Oh, by the way, E flat minor, it will show F sharp, but if you're a music theory nerd, you're going to be like, oh, actually that's G flat. So if I say F sharp, just know that I am aware that in the key of E flat minor, this is actually a G flat. But for most purposes, it doesn't really matter. We're not trying to be like, incredibly technical with this kind of stuff. If it sounds good, it sounds good. Okay. Oops. All right, minor 4, minor 5. Flat 6. I'll put that one down. And flat 7. So, I mean, really, and I realize I did that chord twice. So really we have 6 chords here that you're going to use. I mean, you can use other chords like, sorry, not that one. Major 4, right? You hear that a lot in trance, or you can do the major 5, or even like you could do the 5/7 if you really wanted to. But we're basically going to choose from these chords. So a lot of times, what I like to do is start with the flat 6, because a lot of people, when they listen to music, like the listener wants to hear the 1 chord. It's like the most stable chord. So if you don't start on the 1 chord, you can kind of like make things more interesting. And so sometimes you can start like here on the flat 7 and then go to 1. Or sometimes you can start here on the flat 6 and go to 1. And that's what I'm going to do here. I mean, you can start on any of these chords, but I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. So let's just move this guy over here. That'll be our first chord, right? And then let's create a rhythm, yeah. Because chords, probably you don't want them to just be 1 per beat. So this is going to be, I think what we're going to do here is do this thing. The dotted 8th note. I believe this is a dotted 8th, yeah? You hear that all the time. Let's actually, a lot of times they end it here and do like this kind of thing. But I think I'm going to try to make it a little bit different than usual. And let this one actually carry over the bar. And now we'll go to the 1. So here's the one chord. Right, so we've got, let me turn the metronome on so we can hear this. Actually, let's make this one shorter and drag that one out. So we've got, it goes to the 1, which is what the listener wants to hear. But in this case, I'm not going to stay there too long because I think a lot of times in music, what you want is sort of the delayed gratification of getting to that resolution. So, you could just go to 1 and hold it for a while, or you could start on 1. But a lot of times it's actually, I find it to be an effective technique to delay that and go to other chords either before or afterwards. So the listener's kind of like waiting. They want to hear that one chord when it eventually comes. So we're going to go back down to the flat 7 here. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and copy this. We do want to repeat some elements, but not too many. So in the second half, let's make that first chord a little different. We go to the flat, the minor 5 here. It's getting a bit low. I'll address how to handle that. If the chord starts getting too low, there's ways to use inversions to make it sound better. But for now, and then let's change this last one to some other chord. Maybe the flat 3. So let's go ahead and make this the progression for now. So that doesn't sound that interesting. I mean, it's definitely a start, but let's look at some of the things we can do to make things more interesting and sound a little bit better. So one of the main things that I always try to do with these progressions is minimize the distance between the notes. And I guess people can call that voice leading. But the idea is that the more distance there is between the notes when the chord changes, then the less smooth the transition is. So for example, here, this is actually okay. I mean, since they're all in root position triads, there's not actually that much distance. But once we start making these triads a bit wider, actually, let's do that first. Let's make them wider because a lot of times they sound nice if you open them up a little bit. And what I mean by that is a triad in root position, if you take the middle note and just pitch it up an octave, it'll sound a lot more open, right? So you had closed, and that's open. So, I think it sounds really nice this way. Let's do it with all of them, actually. Yeah, let's get them all going. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and change some of these chords a little bit because they're all sort of just root position triads, now open triads, but still in root position, and there are no extra notes. And a lot of times you can add extra notes to make things more interesting. And certain chords have certain notes that always sound good to add, or usually sound good to add. Like for example, flat 6. Flat 6 almost always you can lower the third to the second and it will sound good. So you can do something like this. Almost always sounds good because you still have the root, still have the fifth, and especially if you hit them with that third at the beginning and then go down, or you could do it the other way, right? It just creates some motion within the chord without actually changing the chord itself. And I guess you could call this an add 9 or an add 2. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is, but that's not that important. The important part is if you think it sounds good, then just go with it. That's generally my philosophy. We'll go up here. we can make this a 7th chord right here. And then we could drop that one down. Because a lot of times if you have one note that's held as you transition between different chords, it'll sound nice. So that might be another reason to actually use this D flat over top of this chord, because it also is contained in this chord if you make it a 7th, and this chord as the root. So the fact that this note is in all 3 chords makes this transition sound really nice. And then you could even like make this one be a suspension, sort of. There's lots of things you can do like this. Like basically, the way you can look at it is you have this chord, and you could ask yourself like, which notes in this chord are also going to sound good in this chord, and like you can try them. If you don't know, just copy them over and try them and see if it sounds good to you or not. And if you understand the music theory as well, then it also helps you make that decision, because then you can say, well, this is, the suspension, it's the sus4, I suppose, of this chord, so it'll work, it'll sound nice. Now here, once we get here, this is minor 5. A lot of times what I like to do actually is with the minor 5, you can actually turn it into a first inversion of, what would that be? First inversion of the flat 3, yeah? So flat 3 would be G flat here. So the flat 3 chord in root position would be this. Oh, hold on. We've lost audio. There we go. Flat 3 in root position would be this chord. So I talked about moving the note up to get the open root position triad, but you can actually move the middle note down as well, and then you get a first inversion triad. And those also sound nice, especially when it goes, like for example, this is flat 3 to 4. That transition always sounds good with first inversion on the first chord, because the bass note motion is just up a semitone. So we have, right, instead of, actually the other one was just this, yeah. Now that also sounds good, but I like to do this because, again, you've got this note in common with both of these chords. So you're minimizing the motion like I was talking about before, and it sounds really nice. You can actually keep this note as well. Let me just line that up, because this is just an octave up from that, so that'll sound nice. There's all kinds of interesting things you can do. You can throw in, just try throwing in notes and see if it makes the chord sound good. Like, right? You could do that and then make this one a major 7th. You could even keep this note going. So this would be a, what would that be? This is the add 9. And this is the major 7th. So this would be like an add 9. Or I guess it would be a major 9 chord. I don't know. It's been a while since I did music theory. I generally go on what sounds good, and I don't worry about like what the notes, what the chords are called. You can certainly study that stuff if you want to. Now let's see. You could drop that one down. When you're making chord progressions, just try pitching the notes, up and down. A lot of times you can get different sort of sounds, even with the same notes in the same chord, if you just pitch them up or down octaves, with the general rule that the lower notes should be further spaced apart than the upper notes. Because if you start like pitching them all down, like then you're going to get something that sounds like this, and like that's super muddy. So yeah, try to get more space. A lot of times what you'll have at the bottom is you got the root and then the 5th, and then on top you've got the other additional notes. So like this one, which isn't in the chord, but it's in the scale and it sounds good in the chord. And this one. So let's move on here. Got that chord, and this is the 1 chord. So again, we could keep this note going, but I think actually probably going to want to come back down, because this is the top note of the first chord. So if it stays up here, then it's going to be a big jump to get down here. So maybe we do want to come back down to having this note be the top note of the chord. could make this a 7th chord like we did here, or we could just keep it like this for a little variation. And then the last chord, could do a major 7th here. Something like that, or even... So this is the same sort of chord as this. Just the bass would be down here. Let's add a double on the root, because all these other chords now have like 4 or 5 notes in them. So I want to sort of expand these ones as well. So I don't like this one, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm not sure I really like it going up there, because that note is completely different from all the other chords. I try to make the chords sort of, blend together and not have any notes really stick out. Because, melodies, once we add melodies, we can have notes that stick out. But I think the chords are going to sound really nice if they don't really have any jarring transitions. So let's see what this sounds like. Ooh. I don't need that low note. And yeah, like this one's a little bit weird at the end, because if you drop this bass note down, then it sounds really low. But if you don't drop it down, then it sounds really high. But we can fix that in the mix once we add a bass layer. So I think this is a pretty good chord progression that we've got going here. We took some triads and just normal 3-note chords and just added some extra notes. Tried to follow a few principles like keeping one note constant as the chord changes, trying to make sure that the chords don't have any drastic changes in terms of where the notes are located. So minimizing that distance. And yeah, just trying different things and trying to, if you have an idea, just go for it and see if it sounds good. So, I think in the next video, we're going to go ahead and add some guitar to this. I think it's always a good idea to try to add some real recorded instruments if possible, or loops that sound like recorded instruments. So that's what we'll be doing in the next video.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting, and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content. And if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.